Good morning, Sunnyhill. Just wanted to give you a heads up. We're experimenting with some new equipment today and some new software for streaming our service this morning. So please bear with us if there are any issues. We have several hands on the job helping us out. And right now we're checking the audio, which sounds like it's coming through. Let's all hope for an uninterrupted service.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Hills, also known as Sunnyhill. We're delighted that you could join us for this service. Our mission here at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Rebecca Senaway, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you're a newcomer or a visitor to our congregation, please go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill to receive more information about our congregation and to receive our weekly email newsletter. Today's service explores issues related to the upcoming holiday season. Although we may be looking forward to celebrating the holidays with family and friends, the reality of these gatherings is often complicated and problematic. At a time of unprecedented polarization, How are we to celebrate with those whose values may differ from our own? Our opening words were written by Laura Horton Ludwig. The wheel of the year has turned again. Once more, the Thanksgiving season has arrived. How shall we sing our song of gratitude now? For what shall we give thanks? For this moment? For friends near and far? For our breath? For love? For courage and clarity? For strength? For delight? For laughter? For beauty? For the tables around which we gather? For the food we enjoy with friends, seasoned with love and memory? For the sun and moon and stars in the sky? For the trees who have seen so much and still stand proud, stretching themselves to the sky? For the bright voices of children? For the wisdom of elders? For actions that bless the world? For hard work that makes a difference? For music and art and celebration? For generosity? For compassion? For endurance? For joy? For hope? For all these things, we give thanks as we worship together. We light our chalice in celebration of the many gifts we have been given.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation, when bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
Good morning. My name is Bradley Convis. I'm proud to be one of the board members of this wonderful congregation. And I'm here to speak to you today for just a few moments about what Sunnyhill means to me, and as we're in the pledge season, talk a little bit about what pledge and stewardship means to me. Well, I'm sure so many people in the room that have gotten to know me over the last few years that I've been a member, you know how meaningful this church is to me. And if I were to say why, it's because of the shared values. It's, living off of those 7 major principles and our soon-to-be adopted 8th, I feel like we're already at a par level that's much higher. The quality of the conversation already starts at such a high level. Every time I engage with one of the congregation members, I feel like there's so many more common interests, common understandings, common viewpoints on life, spirituality. Interactions are much more fluid and comfortable because of that. And so that's what drew me here. First off, I knew there was that commonality of the Unitarian Universalists, but what keeps me here and what makes me proud to be a part of Sunnyhill is how strong this community is, how caring, how loving, how consistent, that community is, our community. And I always feel like there are more people here that I could be friends with than I have the time and energy and opportunity to extend my friendship toward, you know? And that if I just had more time and more opportunity and more energy, I could actually have even more friends than I already have at Sunnyhill. And what a cool thing, you know? Very few parts of my life have so much opportunity. And that's where I kind of segue into the discussion about pledging. Opportunity to me means that, okay, I live in a city that has lots of entertainment, it's cultural events, things that I could participate in. I don't always do them, right? Sometimes it's just a great idea that doesn't happen. Same thing here. So many opportunities to participate in things that are meaningful, special, things that are from the heart, that are, you know, that matter to me, that make me proud, that make me walk away saying, boy, I'm so glad I participated. And if I don't pledge, if I don't honor that with some financial support, then that resource, that opportunity, is unlikely to be there or be as strong, if that makes any sense to you. And I feel a commitment to doing that. I feel even when I'm starting my own business right now, money's a little tight, but do I still take myself out to dinner? Heck yeah. Do I still go to a concert about once a month? Yep. So I still pledge because this place is so meaningful to me and it's so important to me that it's there for me when I need it, when I want it, when I just need a friend. And I can't say any more than that. It's just so special to me that it's not just a part of my physical health, which you guys know I went through a health issue recently and got a lot of support. My mental health, I get nurturing and love here. My spiritual guidance from Jim and the beautiful music. But it's a part of my financial process. And I commit to this in a financial way that's meaningful to me, that makes me feel like I've done my part. So not a guilt trip, just a way to share with you what I'm experiencing myself and see if you find commonality in that. And during this pledge season, I hope that you'll give and give strongly and show how much you love Sunnyhill as much as I do. Thank you.
Gotta bring it all the way down. Thanks, Brad. Have you ever heard that there are two sides to every story? Well, I think there are actually three. There's what you think happened, what the other person thinks happened, and then somewhere in between, what actually happened. You see, we can only tell the version of events that we have access to, the ones we understand to be true. Sometimes only one part of the story, one side of the story, is lifted up and retold for generations and generations before it becomes historic myth. And if you ever played the game Telephone, where you tell a secret and it makes its way across the room from one person to the next person, information tends to get added or removed each and every time that story is retold. And when we're talking about a story that is hundreds of years old, you can imagine how many flowery details were tossed in for fun. This can be the case with the myth of the first Thanksgiving. I'm sure that I'm not the first person to tell you that much of the story that has been told and retold is untrue. Remember about there being three sides to every story? For the last 400 years, we have been telling the story of it from one perspective, the English. I'm sure that the Native Americans who were present had a much different version of events that was true to them. But because of the power and control that the English took afterwards, theirs isn't the story that is commonly heard. Somewhere in between those two perspectives is what may have actually happened. Here's what we now believe to be true. The story begins in England in the 1500s when the king made a new rule that all the people in the land must go to one type of church, the Church of England. A group of people did not like that church and did not want to go to it. They were called separatists. The separatists decided to leave on ships and head to what they believed to be a new world. They scrounged up as much money as they could find, and off they went. Those two ships were the Mayflower and the Speedwell. The Speedwell was carrying the passengers, but had a leak and had to turn back. The Mayflower, which was meant for cargo, was loaded up with many of the passengers and the crew as they crossed the Atlantic Ocean. This group was not the first to set sail across the ocean. They wanted to end up in Virginia, and they had an idea of where that was because people had been there before. Due to storms and currents, they ended up in Provincetown, Massachusetts in November of 1620. From Provincetown, they continued to Plymouth to finally establish their colony. When they arrived on this land, which had already belonged to the Wampanoag people, the village itself was empty because of a plague that had completely devastated them, leaving behind only one individual, Tisquantum. Half of the original passengers of the Mayflower did not survive that first winter in America. Tisquantum assisted them the English in many ways. He was an interpreter, and he taught them how to grow and fertilize the land. After a year of learning from the help of Tisquantum, the English were able to survive, and they celebrated with a feast. The Wampanoag tribe contributed 5 deer and lots of turkeys for the meal, which was likely the bulk of what they had to eat. The feast lasted for around 3 days and consisted of mostly Wampanoag men. For the Native Americans, Thanksgiving feast and showing gratitude for the earth was nothing new. This was, and continues to be, a regular practice. This feast appears to be peaceful and celebratory, and I so wish that the relationship between the Native Americans, the first people that were of this land, and the English stayed that way. For many Native Americans, Thanksgiving is a time of sadness and grief. It's a reminder of how their gifts of knowledge and generosity led to death and destruction. So what do we do with that information? My hope and my prayer is that all of you have a holiday that celebrates the bounty that you are blessed with, whether it be health or love or food. But also remember that the cause of peace and justice is worth fighting for. We should practice gratitude for the earth, always, as is the practice for many Indigenous Americans today. So, love one another, hug one another, feast with one another, and then get back to work, creating a more just and compassionate world. Thank you.
Good morning. This is the time in our service when we share joys and sorrows submitted by members of the congregation. After each joy or sorrow that I share, please respond with, "We hold you in our hearts." A joy this week from Larry Comden. Larry says, Jean Ferlin and I married exactly 6 years ago today in the old main room in front of a standing room only crowd of family and friends. When Reverend Jim asked the gathering if they would support our marriage, the answer was a very loud, "We will." That answer, the service, and music bring the two of us joy every day. To Larry and Jean, we hold you in our hearts. Have a trio of sorrows having to do with pet deaths this week, sadly. The first comes from Nanette Miller, who says, "My beloved dog Pixie crossed the Rainbow Bridge today after almost 12 years with me. She had a good run. She was at least 16 years old. I will miss her." The second comes from Bethany Thornton, who says, "Our best little buddy unexpectedly crossed the Rainbow Bridge tonight. He took a piece of our hearts with him. We love and miss you so much, Wally." And the third from Amy and Bridget Kent, whose dog Lionel also passed away this week. To Nanette, to the Thorntons, and to the Kents, we hold you in our hearts. A sorrow related to the not guilty verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse case this week. We're both saddened and angered by yet another example of the justice system producing unjust results. Had Kyle Rittenhouse not come to the protests last year in Kenosha, no one would have been shot or killed. Had he not had a gun with him, no one would have been shot or killed. Had he not been carrying a semi-automatic weapon, it's much less likely that anyone would have been fatally injured. But Kyle Rittenhouse chose to be there as a vigilante. He chose to arm himself, and he chose to carry a loaded weapon. As a result of his choices, 2 people were killed and another injured. Yet Rittenhouse faces no legal consequences for his decisions or his actions. To the friends and families of those who were killed or injured, for whom there has been no justice, we hold you in our hearts. And a sorrow related to the Thanksgiving holiday, as Jen noted, while this Thursday will be a day of celebration for most of us, for many Native Americans, it is commemorated as a day of mourning, in acknowledgement of the horrors and atrocities their ancestors suffered at the hands of colonists. To all those who mourn while others celebrate, we hold you in our hearts. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Sometimes it's hard just to sit with discomfort, simply to hold in tension the way things are with the way we want them to be, for ourselves, for others, for the world. Sometimes it's hard even to admit that not all is right with us or those around us, that despite appearances, there are places where we feel wounded or less than whole. Sometimes it's hard to imagine how acknowledging these uncomfortable things could possibly help, could make less burdensome the load that we are carrying. In the silence of this moment, let's sit together with those things that trouble us, that often go unacknowledged. May we have the strength to reach out when we need to be comforted. May we have the courage to reach out to others when they need comfort from us. May we have the strength, courage, and resolve to do what we can to offer comfort to the world and to learn to sit with discomfort ourselves, knowing that we do not have to bear it alone. Amen.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Growing up in the United States in the 1960s and 70s, as I did, I was presented with a whitewashed version of the first Thanksgiving that, as Jen mentioned earlier, is probably familiar to most of you. The story was that the Pilgrims, a group of people persecuted for their religious views, came to America to find a home where they could freely practice their particular beliefs. According to the story, as mentioned earlier, the Pilgrims celebrated the first Thanksgiving in 1621, 400 years ago now, as a way of expressing their gratitude for having survived the ocean voyage and that first challenging year in the New World. Again, according to this story, at this first Thanksgiving, there were great piles of food of all kinds, and the Pilgrims celebrated this bounty with their Native American neighbors. In short, according to the story, the two groups came together freely and peacefully to give thanks. The New York Times columnist Charles Blow recently described the school Thanksgiving celebrations of his childhood, which mirror my own. He said, "We made pictures of the gathering, everyone smiling. We made turkeys out of construction paper. We sometimes had a mini feast in class. I thought it was such a beautiful story," Blow says. People reaching across race and culture to share with one another, to commune with one another. But that is not the full story of Thanksgiving. Like so much of American history, the story has had at least its least attractive features winnow away. White people have been centered in the narrative, and all atrocity has been politely papered over. But as Grace Donnelly wrote in a 2017 piece for Fortune magazine, the celebration in 1621 did not mark a friendly turning point and did not become an annual event. Relations between the Wampanoag and the settlers deteriorated, leading to the Pequot War. In 1637, in retaliation for the murder of a man the settlers believed the Wampanoags killed, they burned a nearby village, killing as many as 500 men, women, and children. Following the massacre, William Bradford, the governor of Plymouth, wrote that for, quote, "the next 100 years, every Thanksgiving Day ordained by a governor was in honor of the bloody victory, thanking God that the battle had been won," end of quote. Just 16 years after the Wampanoag shared that meal, they were massacred. So Thanksgiving, as it was originally conceived in the Plymouth colony as an annual event, was not a celebration of cross-cultural cooperation, but rather a celebration of killing Indians. But the whitewashed myth of Thanksgiving persists in American thinking and in indeliberate or deliberate misremembering. This fictional account of the first Thanksgiving has been part of the larger myth about the founding of our country in an effort to forget or gloss over the more unsavory parts of our history. The power of such myths is incredibly strong and potentially incredibly damaging. In a similar way, many of us hold on to dangerous personal myths about our own family's celebrations of Thanksgiving. We sometimes see the family Thanksgivings of our own childhood through lenses that have been distorted by time and experience, such that what we remember, or what we think we remember, may not be a very true picture of what actually happened. While we yearn for happy holiday celebrations with friends and family, free of any tension or strife, the reality is that such celebrations rarely, if ever, occurred in the past and are just as unlikely to occur in the present. While some are more challenging than others, I do not know of any family holiday gathering that is completely blissful and entirely without stress. And holding on to the myth that these get-togethers should be that way is terribly unfair to ourselves and to others. It sets us up for disappointment time and time again. And these days, as political tensions have risen to the point of boiling over, there is even more potential for train wrecks than ever before. The pandemic, which might have served to bring people together across lines of difference, has actually only exacerbated the divisions that already existed, with sharp divisions related to vaccinations, masks, mandates, and a variety of related issues. It's actually difficult to think of anything to talk about with certain relatives that doesn't have the potential for a knockdown, drag-out fight of some kind. It's sad, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is our reality for now. I encourage each and every one of you to look after yourselves during this holiday season and to look out for the well-being of our marginalized and oppressed friends and family members who may be subjected to bullying and verbal and emotional abuse at family gatherings when things go terribly wrong. Specifically, I'd like to offer the following tips for surviving holiday gatherings. Feel free to take them or leave them as you see fit. First of all, set boundaries, both with others and internally, and have an escape plan if boundaries are breached or violated in such a way that you just need to remove yourself from the situation. So think about the boundaries that you want to set with others and try to communicate them clearly, kindly, and directly before the event. And at the same time, decide what you will do if these boundaries can't be maintained. Setting these boundaries can sometimes be awkward, but it's usually much easier than trying to do damage control once harm has occurred. So first, boundaries. Second, as always, remember to breathe and engage in practices that help you feel more centered. For me, that means sometimes just stepping out of the room, out into the yard or out onto the steps, and concentrating on breathing in and out for a minute or two before returning inside. But whatever practice works for you, as long as it's healthy, safe, and sustainable, go for it. So first, boundaries. Second, breathe and center yourself. Third, if you are a part of a marginalized, oppressed, or otherwise vulnerable group, and you think it's likely that you will be attacked or harmed in some way, think long and hard if it's worth attending the event. Sometimes sitting out a potentially harmful event is the best form of self-care. If you do decide to participate in the event, remember to set those boundaries, breathe, reach out to allies, whether they're in the room or somewhere else. Additionally, for those of us who, like myself, happen to hold a great deal of relative privilege and power, please keep in mind 3 more things. A, please make use of your privilege to stand up for those with less privilege in the room. Do not let racist or homophobic or transphobic or misogynistic comments go unchallenged. Your marginalized siblings and cousins need your support, even if it makes you uncomfortable or unwelcome. You don't have to make everyone in the room agree with you. In fact, you will not be able to do so. But you can't let damaging remarks stand unremarked or unchallenged. B, if you are a person with a relative amount of privilege and power and decide to challenge damaging remarks and attitudes, do so with a focus on values rather than issues. When you broaden the conversation with a focus on wider values rather than narrower issues, you have a much better chance of being heard, and you give others the opportunity to articulate their own larger values as well, which is a place where there is sometimes room for growth and understanding. And C, again for those with relatively high levels of privilege, listen to your LGBTQ and Black, Indigenous, and person of color friends and family members and their concerns about holiday celebrations. Remind them to take care of themselves and offer to be an ally on call for them should they need to contact someone in the midst of a family holiday meltdown. Remind them that you love them. In review, as we approach a potentially problematic holiday season, remember 2 important B's, boundaries and breathing. And if you're a person of relative privilege, please do not allow people to throw our oppressed siblings and cousins under the bus unchallenged. And when you do challenge harmful statements and attitudes, focus on values and listen to and support those who are marginalized or vulnerable. It sounds like a lot, but we can do this. I promise you that it can be done. What is required is some thoughtful preparation and some real hands-on living out of our values. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each individual, and we have agreed to work for justice for those who are oppressed. Sometimes justice-making begins at the table at a family Thanksgiving dinner. Sometimes it begins in the conversations we have with friends and family members who have been harmed by the words and actions of others. Sometimes justice-making begins in the simple act of caring for ourselves and others in such a way that love is centered and fear and hatred are squeezed out. I hope and pray as we enter into this holiday season, we will do so with our thoughts and actions informed by our commitments to love and justice, no matter how inconvenient or how challenging it might sometimes be. May it be so. Amen.
We do not have a designated offering this morning, but if you'd like to make a gift to Sunnyhill via our online giving system, you can do so one of two ways. You can go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving and follow the instructions. Once you get to the drop-down menu, just choose either 2021 pledge collections for payments toward your pledge, or non-pledge collections for any other gifts. Or you can give by text at 412-324-3130. Thank you for your generosity.
Before we sing our hymn, I just want to acknowledge that I was kind of in a dark place when I wrote the sermon this week. So it sounded very heavy as I heard the words coming out of my mouth. There's still room for joy as we celebrate Thanksgiving, folks, and the holiday season. So I just want to remind you that it doesn't have to be so heavy. There is room for joy. There is room for love. There is room for sharing with each other the things that are truly important. So please keep that in mind as well.
One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more
Step again.
one more step. We will take one more step
Before we extinguish our chalice, I would like to take this opportunity to make a quick announcement. The coming of age students from last year's class and this year's group have come together to raise some funds, to work on raising funds in the hopes that they can travel this year to learn more about becoming Unitarian Universalists. So the first fundraiser are the Poinsettia Sales that we've had in the past. And the link will be provided, hopefully, as you're scrolling this morning, but we'll share it online. We'll put it in the beat. But please, if you're willing and able, we would love to sell you some poinsettias. We'll pick them. We'll have them delivered here in mid-December. All the details will be online. Please join me in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words were written by Gary Kowalski. Go in peace, speak the truth, give thanks each day. Respect the earth and her creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body, it is a wondrous gift. Live simply, be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path. Walk in a sacred manner. Go in peace.